On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
How do you become a servant? So my thing is, if you want to network with somebody and you want to get something, how do you serve them? You know, you can serve them in many ways. Hey, can I help you by doing this? Or, hey, I noticed you're in this field. Would you mind if I just did something for you and you check it out? Whatever you can do to help serve them, I think that'll get their attention. And I think that'll show at least that push towards saying, I want to learn and I'm willing to work towards the learning.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
All right, guys, Chaz Wolfe, I'm back. I've got Nathan Bowers here on the King stage. Bro, thanks for coming, man. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, thanks for inviting me. This is good, man. So I'm checking out your stuff and excited to be here.
Good, man. I appreciate that. You know, I've had several guests check things out, you know, before they've come onto the show, and we've had just a ton of good feedback from guests, of course, listeners. But for the listeners out there today, I think that they're in for an absolute treat. We get to know each other a little bit. You're obviously a king in business, but there's so much more to you than just the business. I'm excited for our conversation to go to those other areas of life as well. I think they're going to get a big part of who you are today. So, Nathan, tell us what kind of business are you in?
Yeah, so the business that we're in mainly is real estate investing. Love real estate. So, right now we're doing mainly flips, just fixing flips, rehabs. Right now we're trying to build out a little bit more of a wholesale. And that's within a few different disposition techniques. Not your traditional wholesale where you find an end buyer, that kind of thing, but more so how much inventory can we hold and dispo ourselves type stuff. So,
love it.
Doing a lot of that. Land development, we got into that last year a little bit. So we're just looking to expand on that. And just honestly, a lot of stuff real estate. And then seeing where that can branch out. There's always ideas coming every single day. So, just where we can provide an opportunity, man. That's what matters most. So.
Yeah, I love that too. The way that you just described your in and outs of real estate is really how I've described myself. Even like, I just love the creativity of real estate because you can go this way and then you can turn a little bit and then you can come way over here and right. You could do whatever you want really. And so I'm anxious to get to know the back end of everything. And obviously you're running a big business underneath the tag of real estate investing. So before we get there though, before we get to kind of the business and how you've grown it up at this stage in the game, you're making excellent money. You've got systems and process in place. You've got a good team. Like for all intents and purposes, the listener says you've made it, but you're still pushing. You're still trying new things like land development. You're still not satisfied. You're still reaching for more. Why?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think we all come to that stumbling block of when is enough enough? It's a big question. But, I think it came to me really, towards last year, but more towards the beginning of this year. That the biggest thing for me was if you have a skill, if you have an opportunity to build something and you're really good at building, then why do you stop building? And so I think for me, I really recognized that, even though, it's easy for us to try to be humble, we also have to recognize what is it that we've been, given? What gift have we been given? And so now I'm at a place where it's like, no, we can do so much more for other people. We can build other things. We can help train other people. We can help other people's success grow. And so we just got to keep going. And otherwise, we'll just be sitting around doing nothing. So I think, we should keep building. So
that's cool. I heard you say two things, which I just so relate to. Number one is your gifting. And when you realize your gifting or even your business identity, right? Because we have an identity of who we are. And then that translates into business, into our purpose. And so I'm hearing you say that once you've gotten clear on that of like, really, why am I doing this? There's so much more than just, earning money to buy things. Of course, we need to do that, but it becomes bigger than that. And it becomes down to, okay, like you're really good at like what you said is building. I just love that perspective. And I respect another entrepreneur that can just clearly identify that in themselves and then press into it and be okay with like maybe sometimes working long hours or trying to get new connections or the things that maybe you don't have to do, but you do them anyway because it's who you are. It's who you're designed to be. The second thing I heard you say is the helping other people, man. Like, is that something that just came this last year of like expanding that out? Because it's very kingly, right? It's not like it's not self-centered at that point that you're talking about. It's the kingly perspective to take care of others inside the organization or inside the kingdom. And that's what you've got now. Is that the new part, or has that been around for a while? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it originates with just discipleship. I think it's that model of discipleship. At the end of the day, and it was back in my retail days, I could share a little bit, but I always found myself flocking to try to help the people that were credited as, oh, they're not very good at what they do, or oh, they're not supposed to be here, or oh, they're upset, we should just go ahead and terminate them or fire them. And it's like, there's a reason why they're here. And so it's just trying to find those people, and we call ourselves the oddballs, but we're an oddball group. And the reason why is because we want everybody to know it doesn't matter. You don't have to have this certain stigma to you or education or experience. All of that's important. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, just being able to help people that genuinely want to succeed, and you help guide them along the way, disciple them, and then hopefully they do the same thing for others. So.
Yeah, I love the word disciple because it puts a whole nother spin on teaching, coaching, training. There's a personal element there. It's actually funny. It was a couple of years ago, before I really started doing any sort of like strategy coaching with entrepreneurs, of course, before this podcast, before any mastermind groups, I would say to my wife, I want to disciple business owners. Do those go together? I don't know what that means,
Right.
So, that's the first time I've heard someone else say it like that. So I just, I'm getting the chills over here, man. Okay. You've told us why you push at this stage, but tell us how you got started into business. Was it real estate was the first business? Were you in business before that? And you stumbled across real estate? Tell us the beginnings.
Yeah, just a quick short intro. Started young working and had a family when I was 18. Got married when I was 18, had my first. So at that stage, it's like I got to work to survive and provide.
Yeah.
So got caught up into the whole, hey, let me go ahead and work and try to run up the corporate ladder. Did all that for a while, but I always wanted to get out, and so that's kind of our thought is we got to get out, we got to get out, we got to get out, but. There were a couple of moments, and I go back to this one moment where I really thought, man, I want to run my own business. And it was, I had this product, and it was these face masks. It was a ski mask for elevation mask. And I love this story because I knew that they sold, and I'm like, these things are $100 plus a pop. And so I ended up buying some from overseas, and didn't have any clue on how to do this, but I ended up drop shipping them on eBay. Sold like $2,000 in like one day.
Wow.
And at that moment, I got kicked off for doing it. They were coming overseas. But I learned a good lesson, and that was that if you know a product and you have an audience and you can sell anything, so you just have to really understand that. And so really that, and then we did some bounce houses as a business on the side, and while I was working, and then it just came into real estate, and just that jump all in. That was kind of what started it, though. Just seeing that you can take something, make money with it, and flip it. So
yeah, that's really cool. That you've kind of had a little bit of a runway or an on ramp into, like you said, getting out completely. And I've actually coached a lot of entrepreneurs to do that. Like they've got an idea, they do a bounce house on the side, or they're doing something on the side, and financially that makes a lot of sense. Is that kind of why you guys did that? You didn't jump right away into like full-time bounce housing because it was just supplemental, or were you trying to get to that current point of like certain savings, or what was the plan back then?
Yeah. I mean, I think first off is the idea, you want to start something, but you still want that comfort of having your job or whatever it may be.
Sure. Yeah. I know that.
But at the end of the day, you're only limited by how much time you have. And especially with family, you can't go full time into something. So, I draw business plans on, hey, this is what it would take for me to leave and stuff and that kind of thing. But I do believe I want to say it was about 9 months of savings when I finally left. And that was actually crucial. I didn't know it at the time. I thought, oh, I'll be fine. But it actually took me about 6 to 9 months to really build what we ended up having today. And so I think you have to take risk. I tell this to my friends all the time that want to get out of places. And it's like, at some point, you're going to have to take a leap because you just can't give that much time to something else. It's not your baby. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs realize that. And even for the guys that are listening right now, they're building a 6-figure business, or they have a 6-figure business. They haven't built the 7-figure, and potentially they're distracted even in the same as if having a job. Like, and that's really the core principle of what you're saying, is that at some point the scale tips, right? And you've got to press in over here. Sounds like you guys did it in an ideal scenario where you had some savings, you gave yourself some confidence, a little bit of a runway to just like press in, not be worried, stressed. I'm sure that there was plenty of worry and stress, but we'll get to that. The entrepreneur who's listening right now, and they're like, I'm just like, get this whirlwind of stuff. How can you translate like leaving corporate America, jumping all into real estate? Like, what would you tell the person who's already probably made the jump, but they just like the all in factor that we're talking about? How do they go all in, like, again, even where they are now, to be able to get to the greater level?
Well, I think one of the biggest things you got to tell yourself is, hey, if I gave 50 to 60 hours towards a company, whether, if you include drive time, you include all the breaks and lunches and what it may be, then how do I take 50 and 60 hours and be disciplined and just put that 50, 60 hours into something else? And if you truly put all that time and dedicate all that time, and you say, I'm going to be disciplined to go and work for myself for this amount of time, then you're going to find a way to just really explode that business. And I think if it's something you're passionate about, most people leave because they want to do something that they enjoy, or they're wanting to build something. So you just got to find that one little thing that says, hey, I just need to twist this and do this, and then let me scale it 50 to 60 hours a week. And then you're just going to end up hitting a zone where you're just going to end up exploding. And that happened for us, and I think it happened for anybody. Just got to find that right thing to kind of push. So.
That's good. I love the idea there. Let's dig into some of those things you were saying that you were pressing into. Along the way, of course, you've made good and bad decisions. So tell us about a good decision that you made along the way that just really helped catapult your growth.
Yeah, a good decision. I think understanding what it's going to take to do the next step. So for me, one of the best decisions we made was we had a good chunk of money from a deal that we had, and it was our first flip that we did. And I knew that amount of money was going to pay for the down payment, the rehab, and so forth. So in essence, it was an easy transition because that was a bonus. That was a chunk that I was going to use. And I was able to take that and use my knowledge that we had already in real estate. And then we were able to do the process. So I never felt that loss, so to speak. It was a good decision because it's what propelled me to do it and do it and do it. So now I knew my basis was this amount of money. Now I just got to take that and double it. And then if I want to do 2 more, I've got to double it. And if I want to do 4 more, I've got to double it. And so now you understand your structure behind how you can grow really fast.
Yeah. Okay. And so for the person listening right now, and they're hearing this decision of basically taking winnings, investing, creating a process where you can basically predictably grow, is what in essence what you said, right?
Exactly.
How does someone at like a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 business implement what you're saying from a high level? Like they gotta hone in on their systems. They got to be able to invest. What are they investing in?
I use this line from a movie all the time, and it's moved from Moneyball. I'm allowed to speak that up here, but Moneyball, the process behind that is that you're not buying, the best players. You're buying wins by buying runs. You're buying runs by being on base. So I think for that person that wants to scale it, they've got to figure out what their walks are and how to get on base. You don't have to try to buy the home run. Don't buy the triple. Don't buy the double. Just try to get on base. And then how do you get on base? A lot of times. So one thing we say is we always buy profit. We don't buy houses. We buy profit. Why? Because I just want to know how to get that walk, how to get that single. And then I know if I get that many and that many and that many, I'm going to end up buying myself a win. And then I want to win this many times in a year. And I think that's the key, working backwards and finding out what your walks and your singles are.
Dude, we could end right now, and they would have so much to go work on. I've used different language, but man, it's the same exact thing. It's like you have to create a repeatable process, and semantically, it's acquisition or marketing, sales, client fulfillment or your project for you, and then finance. And if you can just hit the repeat button enough times, the business is going to grow. And I think you're 100% right. Like, people are trying to swing out of the park, and they're frustrated because they're working 80 hours a week trying to swing out of the park when all we really got to do is get on base.
Right. Exactly.
It's like winning is the drug, right? Like,
exactly.
don't worry about the grand slam. It's just like, you just got to get a win. And the win is to get on base, is to make the small move today. And how many times can I make that small move today, this week, this month, to end toward the actual target, So such great perspective. How did you learn that? Like, what part of your journey did you get that information?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always ask myself that sometimes, but I think it's just a culmination of just all the different people I've seen. A lot of times you see stuff behind the scenes, and this goes back to that philosophy of everybody's watching, right? You don't know who's watching, but everybody is. And so I think I would just take a lot of nuggets from all these different little places and say, okay, well, I've seen they're successful and they're doing it the right way. They don't have to teach me directly, but I can just see what they did and implement that. And so there were many people along the way, just reading books and different things of that nature. But I think also just like watching that movie, you can do something, but then once you see, I love sports. So I think sports is a great reference for a lot of us, is how are the most successful franchises out there winning? Why do the New England Patriots win all the time? Why does Tom Brady win all the time? Why do these guys win all the time? Greg Popovich is a great example. And they always talk about it, fundamentals. You don't have to be flashy. You just got to figure out how to do it little by little and do it well, the fundamentals. And so I think it applies for any business that you're in, same thing. So.
Yep. That's so good. Okay. So let's flip the coin. Let's talk about a bad decision that you've made that was terrible. Keep us out of the red zone.
I've said this, there's been a couple times, but there's one specific time during this whole process, and I think it applies for anybody, is doing business with friends or very, very close people to you and not having the right expectations, not having it in writing. So to this day, there's only one property that we've ever lost money on. And it was a property that we did with the friend. And you would think with two great minds, you would do really well. But in essence, we didn't set the right expectations. And it's everybody's fault. It's not just one person. It's one-sided. But I think it goes to show, don't do stuff with people unless you really set those expectations and put it in writing. It's not hard to put something in writing, but somebody like me, you got to have somebody do it for you. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So just to pull out the super clear nugget here, it's not don't do business with friends or family. It's if you're gonna do business with anybody, clear expectations, especially with people that like and trust, like friends and family, are unbelievably important. And not just expectations of like, hey, here's what we're talking about, but it's written down, it's in an agreement, we know how it ends. And I've got a good friend who's, purchased and sold many companies just like I have. And so we've had these conversations of, you have to build the end at the beginning, whether that's literally in your operating agreement, especially if you have partners, or if just in your projections, you have to think, what does 3 years look like? Where am I exiting? Who am I selling this to? Like, you have to build the end right away. And that what you're talking about is 100% accurate, especially when you're really, really close with those people, because then feelings get in the way,
Exactly. So.
And it's money, money creates wedges, man. You got wrong expectations around money and people just freak out.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I can't blame them, but it can be easily adverted, usually. Okay. So good expectations. How would you suggest, outside of just like, an operating agreement, is there any techniques that you would recommend there to create good expectations?
I think, just really masterminding together. I think understanding what everybody's purpose is. One thing over those times that I've learned those multiple times is sometimes your gut will tell you immediately, hey, should I do this with somebody? And you would think immediately, of course I should, because they're so close to me. But, your gut will say, hey, you shouldn't do this. And, you would rather have that conversation of, hey, I can't do business with you, than get into it and do it and then feel odd about it. So I think daily transparency to add to that is just speaking and being vocal. So like, don't let a week go by if you being irritated about how this process went, right? And not speak about it. If you have a problem, you need to be able to address it right then and, handle the conflict right then and not wait it out. And so, just daily vocalization with that person, I think is key.
I think you're 100% right. And I love what you said there too, being honest with each other up front. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I've had those scenarios, even with super close friends. We go down the road with each other, looking at something, whether buying a business, doing a deal together. And one of us has that little gut feeling of like, And so and I'm like, look, it's a deal, right? Like friendship is always going to be, or family, whatever it is. Like you got to hold on to that piece first. So such great value. Thank you so much for that. Good perspective as well. Do you have, we're talking about good and bad decisions. Do you have like a process or like a discipline around making good decisions, especially maybe when it comes to your team or having other people involved?
No, that's good. I think for us, we talk about discipline. We talk about, two disciplines. One is make sure you have a starving audience to what you're going to sell. And what I mean by that is if we buy something and we know we've got a ton of buyers, especially right now with a lot of unknowns in the industry. But if we know, hey, there's a lot of people still under $300,000 wanting to buy. Okay, well, we have a starving audience. So that's the first discipline. Know that you can sell whatever it is that you're about to sell. Know that you have a bunch of buyers. The second thing is we look at a number. It's a very easy process. If we know we can make a certain number, and I'll be transparent, it's 25K is our number. So we don't look at percentages. We don't look at necessarily how big the rehab is. Okay. We just look at, hey, 25 is a good number because there's plenty of cushion, but then that's also our target. And I'll say this, over the last 2.5 years, roughly, we've had this discipline and we've almost hit that number every single time. So it just goes to show if you just follow it and you understand what your disciplines are, you won't go and try to once again hit a home run and then all of a sudden be like, well, I knew I shouldn't have bought that because that's not our normal disciplines.
Yep. Yep, exactly. Yeah. I recently got introduced to the term buy box, and that's in essence what you're referring to, right? Exactly. Yep. I used to call them bumpers or parameters, whatever you want to call them, but you have these things and you do not do things outside of it. It just, right. It is your guiding principle. And so I love that, especially for you, you know exactly what you're trying to buy, who sell it to, how much money you're trying to make on it. Obviously at this point, you've done hundreds of transactions, I'm assuming, but the opportunity for you to hit the repeat button becomes really easy when you have those things identified ahead of time.
Exactly. Yep.
And I would say it's probably the same thing. Like I'm thinking of a tradesperson, a guy building decks or a person who's doing marketing for people. Like if you have that buy box, for lack of better terms, that of what it is that I do, who it is that I service, and here's the spectrum. And if you just stay right there, you stay in your lane, then you can do it really well every single time. And like you said, out of all these transactions, you've lost money only on one. It becomes really predictable.
Exactly.
Which then you can build a team around and you can scale around. Like it's all the variables that you can't,
Exactly. So.
Okay. I've got some like speed round questions for you, but before we get there, I want to know, just because you've given me so much off air about just kind of like a little bit of your story and stuff. I want to know like life, business, all the other stuff, like not just real estate stuff. Tell me about disciplines or processes that you have that are outside of business, but that correlate to business in your life, marriage, just other things going on. I'm trying to pull out some of these rich nuggets you got.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been married 19 years and 3 kids, got an 18-year-old. So, learning that
I'm
process.
sure that in itself is a whole world.
But I think the biggest things that you can do, and the biggest thing I think is always take the things that maybe you had mistakes, and then always try to say, okay, maybe I don't have to replicate that. So just like we want to replicate good things and replicate the walks and all that stuff, I think the biggest thing is replicating the thing, or not replicating those mistakes and trying to build from them. So it's like, okay, this might have happened with, when we first raised our first child, but when we do our second child, okay, well, maybe we know now, okay, don't do that. And then with the third, it's like, oh, okay, this becomes normal. So things like that have been the biggest things from a family standpoint. And then I think just valuing time, little things like that. And then including him, right now, my biggest focus, and it's one of those things where I'm learning, is trying to teach, my youngest about finances, talk more about it, set more goals, because it's not something you think about because you're like, why would they want to know that? But it's so valuable because they're going to remember those things, just like we remember stuff when we were younger. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember those memories.
Yeah. Give us, if you don't mind, give us, like, how are you teaching them about finance? I have 3 young ones as well, like we talked about. And so I'm always looking for ways to talk about not just money, but the value of commerce and business and value and exchange and all that, right? But so how are you doing it? I'm curious.
Yeah, so just a couple little things over the last, couple months. One thing was, it was this method I learned from a good friend of mine, a great financial advisor. And he was just talking about give them each $5 and say, hey, you can either give this away or you can go and invest it and, do whatever you want with it. And so just giving little challenges like that. And for my children, they both wanted to just give it away, which is perfectly fine because it teaches also that process of giving. But then also just talking about investing. If you have $5 and you can go spend that on a video game or something, right? And then it's like, well, what if you take that $5 and just saying, hey, we're going to buy this piece of land. You can put that $5 and if it increases 20%, I'll give you a 20% return on your $5, which makes them $1. So it's just little things like that saying, wait, I can do nothing and put this money into this and make $1. Okay, well, why not? That makes sense. So trying to keep it simple and easy. So then that way it doesn't become so complicated when, if they want to build something later on and do it their way and whatnot. So little challenges, I think, can go a long way. So,
yeah, I think the point that hits home for me in listening to you, and obviously I'm already doing these things as well, but it's just the intentionality, right? It's like, as a business owner, as a successful business owner, how do we translate that to the children or the next generation? Which is, you can't just assume, you can't just by osmosis, just because they're around you, assume that they're paying attention and learning all these things. No, you got to be intentional, just like you were about building your business. Like you're building a human, you're building their intelligence, their understanding of money, business, commerce, all that, So I just love that. Okay. You ready for the speed round?
Sure. Let's do it.
The first question is, if you could only pick one metric in the entire business to track forever and ever, what would it be?
Profit.
Okay.
I always got to go profit, man.
If you're not making money, you're not making money.
Yeah. You just keep it simple. Keep it, does it make money? What you're buying, what you're selling. Is there profit in between? And
that's good.
You can do everything with that. That's your hub.
That's right. You got to know that number. Okay. Second question is, what book would you recommend to a 6-figure owner trying to get to that 7-figure mark?
Oh, what book would I recommend? That's a good one. It's actually, I'll probably recommend something that's been recent. It's a good one because I think most people get them wrong. Legacy Journey by Dave Ramsey. Okay. A lot of people know Dave Ramsey as hey, get out of debt, don't spend any money, all this other stuff. But no, the guy's got such financial advice. And once again, it goes back to audiences. So in this book, he talks more about how to elevate yourself to those levels. You said exactly just what you said, 6-figure to 7-figure. That's exactly what he's talking about. And he's speaking from a language that I think most people can understand. So
that's awesome. Well, great. I haven't heard of that one. Obviously, I'm familiar with Dave. So that's a great book that I'll have to get for myself. Next question is, do you intentionally mastermind or network with other entrepreneurs, and why?
Yeah, I think I do. I might do it a little different. I'm a little organic probably in this. I'm not a big events guy. We don't go to events, and that's again one of those disciplines. It's like, I don't need to fly out and do these things. But I will say this one thing, and this is something just I think goes back to, my faith, is how do you become a servant? So my thing is, if you want to network with somebody and you want to get something, how do you serve them? You can serve them in many ways. Hey, can I help you by doing this? Or, hey, I noticed you're in this field. Would you mind if I just did something for you and you check it out? Whatever you can do to help serve them, I think that'll get their attention. And I think that'll show at least that push towards saying, I want to learn and I'm willing to work towards the learning. But yeah, just how to be a good servant is a good way to be humble in the sense that, hey, I can grasp everything that this person's about to tell me and then just take it in and apply it, take it in and apply it.
That's right. And that kind of, we could talk a whole podcast on just that. But what I heard you say that I want to pull out for the listener is the application of what's either learned in a group or in a conference, or like you said, even if just meeting an individual, when you learn it, the next step you said was then apply it. And that's a huge gap for a lot of people. They hear it, they go to a conference, like you said, or maybe they are, in a local, networking group or something. They learn something and then they write it down. And it's like they never learned it, like they don't go apply it. So any things that you've done there as far as whether it be disciplines again, or just things that have helped you take from like hearing it to understanding it to writing it down to actually implementing it?
Yeah, well, I'll share something that I just got the other day, and I read this from a guy. This goes back to the starving audience, but I think it'll apply to anybody. Is if you have a starving audience, you take and this is just something simple. You take a bar crowd, right? 2:00, I guess everybody gets out of the bars or they close down, right? And he says, if you had a table with 100 hot dogs and they were the worst hot dogs in the world, you're going to sell every single one out. Doesn't matter what they were like. Because you have your audience, you have a product, and you're offering it to them. And so I think from an application standpoint, that really got me thinking, not so much, hey, all about real estate, but I also, I'm in the process of how can I just take that little model and just go and reapply it? Because, you could do that with anything. And so, for me, I will go back to we used to do these things called tax sales, where you would go to the auctions and buy these cheap properties, and they were tax foreclosed. And so I learned all about them in about a day and was like, oh, you can resell these since they've been 6 months. So we'd buy these things for $100, $200. And then we would just go and sell them once we got, all the liens cleared up and all that stuff for like $3,000. Yeah. And so it's same thing. You take something simple, you have an audience, you buy it and you apply it. Now, if I never went to that tax sale, I would have never even knew that was possible. Right. And then, a lot of people started finding out in the last 2 years and they've dried up, but they'll come back, because it's just what our market does. So things like that, take something small, go sell a candy bar, go sell some sodas, go get a vending machine and put it in a gas station or something, or, anything small, watch the return. So.
Yeah. It's a good principle to follow. Okay. Second to last question. Actually, this is the first podcast where I'm going to ask a new last question. So I'm going to save on that one. But the previous last question was, if you lost it all, Nathan, what would you do?
Oh, if I lost it all, what would I do? I would probably find same thing, just exactly what I touched on. I would find a way to take something that was trash of somebody's, because a lot of people throw stuff out and make some money on that. And then just flip small and then flip big, keep flipping until you get to a larger scale. So, whether that be couch that needs to be cleaned up, that was thrown out and then resold on Facebook for a few $100. Hey, you just made a few $100 in a couple hours. Just constantly doing that because everybody has a different value for something. And you just have to find your end buyer. So if I was to start it all, I would do that. And I would do that to get to a point where I could buy real estate. Yeah. And then once I get to real estate, just repeat that whole process. So.
I love it. So I heard you say you wouldn't give up, you wouldn't fold in, you wouldn't, roll over, and you would go back to what but more specifically, you'd eventually find your way back to real estate. And so it obviously is a key player in what you see your future being.
Yeah, I love real estate. Real estate's great. It'll be the hub of what we continue to grow in for sure. So
that's awesome. Okay. So the new last question for Gathering the Kings podcast, here it comes. Ready? If you only had 1 hour a day to work on your business, how would you run your business?
I would definitely take a platform and I take a platform like Voxer. Voxer's a good one. I would basically say, who do I need to talk to in that hour? And if I need to talk to 30 people, then that means I got 2 minutes a person. And so I'm going to send one 1 minute Voxer out, and then I'm going to get one minute Voxer back. And that's it. And find a way to communicate to as many people the most important priorities of that time, and then run from there. So
yeah, love it. Good answer. I'll be curious to see what the other folks behind you answer.
That's a good question.
It actually got brought up just maybe a week or so ago. It was a question asked of me and several other folks in a room. And when I thought about it, I was like, wow. And I just immediately fixated on how I would do that. And I already obviously have some really, really keen ideas similar to what you said, but it just, when you put yourself in the perspective of literally limiting your time, like we all have the same amount of time, so we are limited by our time. But as entrepreneurs, especially as someone like myself, who just I just don't have a problem working hard. Like I love working hard. Right. And so, like an 18-hour day is like, whatever, But if I only had the 1 hour, how would I structure that? And so it's not just necessarily always about the grind or the grind culture. It's more so about systems and high level. And so I find myself in both camps, obviously, constantly, because I'm always wanting more. But I think that mindset of limiting your time even on purpose, like when you don't have to, limiting it down to the 1 hour. I had one guy actually, a buddy of mine that I asked the question to just because I was curious of some answers right away. And he said, I would talk to the one person that runs my business for 1 hour and make sure that everything was on par for how it's going. And then I would limit it to 1 hour a week. And then I would limit it to 1 hour a month. And then I would limit, just like continually and it wasn't just like the 1 hour. It's like, let me break it down even further. And even that was just like, yes, we got to get to that place. So if the audience connected with you, Nathan, and they want to just get to know you better, they want to maybe do a deal with you, they want to invest somehow, maybe potentially if you even offer that, how do they find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Facebook. Facebook's a great thing. You look me up, Nathan Bowers, or you look up Ambition Group on Facebook. You can email me, nathan@ambitionrealtygroup.com. It just however you want to get a hold of me, just reach out. I'm all about helping replicate the process. This process is, I've seen people replicate exactly what I've talked to them about before and what we've talked about. It's a simple process. I don't think any industry, it makes a difference. You just have to know the industry. But yeah, we can replicate that process. And I would love to see people scale and grow. That's what it's all about, and seeing what they can be capable of, because we all have it in us. We just have to pull it out of us, and we got to actually push. Be a little uncomfortable, but it's good. So
that's cool, man. I appreciate you just making yourself available, and of course, bringing value today. Man, the listeners got a ton here. So I just so appreciate your perspective, your experience, all that you've pressed into in the marketplace, your success even. And we just wish you absolutely nothing but success in all that you put your hand to. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Chaz.
Thanks for listening to Gathering the Kings. We hope you got a ton of value today and learned a thing or two about taking your business to 7 figures and beyond. If you desire more and want a community around you to help you get there, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. That's gatheringthekings.com. And I want you to apply for our next Becoming a King 90-day intensive. We are extremely exclusive by nature as a group. What that means is that we're really wanting only the entrepreneurs who take their business and targets super serious to apply. So if that's you think you got what it takes to level up your business, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com and apply. And we will see you on the other side.